following is a clip from Flatoberfest 2022. Mark Sargent.
There you go. Flat Earth Clues. Okay, introduction by Mark Sargent. Here you go, everyone. Mark Sargent. Man.
Was that Rick? Yeah. Rick Hummer, thank you. By the way, Rick Hummer, if you don't know, he used to MC, he MC'd Dallas and Denver and Raleigh, and I've been spending the last 4 nights with him, and so if it sounds like I'm a little out of sorts, bear with me.
We're getting matching tattoos.
Thank you, thank you. And by the way, thank you to Karen B. I know I can't see you guys because of the house lights, but Karen, you made all this possible, so thank you, thank you. I don't know where we'll be next year. I hope it's Vegas. My vote officially on camera is for Vegas, but we'll see where it is. So for all you new people that haven't been here and don't know what I do, I'm going to bend your brains a little bit. And then afterwards, there will be a Q&A, so I'll bend your brains for hopefully 15, 20 minutes. And then we will do a Q&A microphone, where? Somewhere down there? Guys, help me out. Yeah. Okay, there'll be a microphone. Someone will be manning the microphone. You do not have to go to the microphone until we get close to the end, and you'll know because I will say either in conclusion or to conclude, so you don't have to, hover around the microphone.
Not yet.
And I will answer as many questions as I can until they rip me off stage as Karen and Ted run into the other room for some reason. Okay, so. Let's see, what else was I going to cover real fast before I got into this? I just wanted to frame it a bit. And since Halloween is approaching quickly, I thought it might be appropriate to start this conference off with a bit of a ghost story, a bit of a mystery, a bit of a riddle. And it reaches out from beyond the grave. And it is called The Kept Secret. And we're going to do a little slideshow that goes along with this. So if you're into Flat Earth long enough, some of you guys know that most of our time is spent answering questions. How does this work? And what about this? And since I've been doing this for over 7 years, going on 8 years, next year, I get my fair share of questions. No. And the usual suspect questions go a little bit like this. Mark, what about meteors? Mark, what about solar eclipses? Mark, why do you carry 99 cents in your pocket? Well, because that way I always have exact change. Think about it. All right. One of my favorites is, Mark, how can something as big as Flat Earth be kept a secret? It is a good question. To reinforce this point, I look to the wisdom of this man. Next slide, please. There we go. Ben Franklin said that 3 can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead. I somewhat disagree with this statement. Given the right motivation, secrets can be kept at any level, and for the first time, I'm going to share with you one of mine. Next slide. In 2015, several months after the clues were made, my family let me know that an interesting handwritten letter had been discovered. This very letter. Up on the screen. This isn't just a demo letter, that's actually the real thing. It's probably been a little while since you've read anything in longhand, so I have transcribed the contents, and the letter goes exactly like this. Next slide.
That buzz was not good.
There you go. Seriously, if any of you can read that from there, I'd give you a gold star. So, you notice in the corner of that letter, by the way, before I even read the letter, it is written and sent from the city of Chelan, Washington, November 1st, 1935. It was sent to R.S. Purvis, El Rey Apartments, Seattle, Washington. Dear R.S.P., I say, what ho, pip pip, cheerio, and all that sort of thing. Did you get my letter on the 15th as well as the one on the 27th instead? You didn't? Well, I admit, I must have forgotten to send them, but if I had written them, I would ask the following questions. How is ye old schoolwork? Ditto for the job. Is anyone in my private seat as of yet? With these fundamental points out of the road, we can proceed with the letter. Next slide. Life east of the mountains has changed swiftly in the past few days. I hope it hasn't affected you in the same manner. We are in the icy grip of a cold wave, the likes of which we have never seen before. Work is at a standstill in the orchards and packing houses because fruit cannot be touched while frozen. I didn't know that. The loss has been estimated from $1 million to $3 million, quite a bit in 1935. Worse luck for the growers, many of whom have more debts already than the Democratic Party. This morning it was 10 above zero here and colder elsewhere. I have a slight cold myself to keep in step with the times. Enough for the weather as you read it in the paper anyway, or do you? Same thing. I went to work as soon as I came back here and have been at it ever since. Most of my Sundays, next slide, I have spent going hunting with my gal, which accounts for the fact that I have written no letters or even had a pen in my frozen mud hook since leaving Seattle. Great success has been ours in the field if one forgets that we went hunting for deer without results. For we have bagged 3 Chinese pheasants, 3 valley quail, and 2 Huns. That's a World War I reference, if you're wondering. Oh yes, and a rabbit. Lots of fun was had by all. To get back to Wilson's, I will await your reply informing me just how you are getting along and anything else of interest about the old stomping grounds. I am not just sure yet when I'll be back out, but if the rest of the apple harvest is a flop, I'll be back around the middle of November, I imagine. How does the situation look around here for getting a janitor's job? Next slide. When I get back, are they crowded with janitors or have some of them dropped out? Advise me as to the situation, will you? Well, Spence, I can't think of anything else right now, so I'll close this and move up closer to the stove. 10 above. Write soon if you are not froze up. Sincerely, George Sargent. Now, some of you junior detectives in the audience or Scooby-Doo fans may have already found a plot hole in this story. The letter was written by my grandfather, George Sargent. Was the letter not sent? How did I acquire it? Did we track down R.S. Purvis and after enhanced interrogation forced him to give up the letter? Not exactly, but we'll get to that in a bit. RSP stands for Robert Spence Purvis. He dropped his first name and went by Spence, so for the rest of this I will call him Spence. If you listen carefully, you may have also detected an odd pacing in the letter. I saw this as well and suspected that it was written in code. To that point, I sent copies of the letter to a few cryptographers. They both concluded that it was probably using a simple book cipher, simple in that it could be decoded if you had a copy of the book, which both men used, a book that was never found. Next slide. While the code was interesting, I was more concerned in what happened after this letter was sent. In 1935, both of these men were in their teens. Some years later, they would get wives and move to Seattle to raise families. Next slide. This is a current map of the greater metro Seattle area. George Sargent lived on 85th Street while Spence Purvis moved to Magnolia. I know the Seattle area well and can tell you that back then the drive time between these locations was around 15 minutes. As you can see from this 2022 Google map, the 15-minute drive is still possible today. Next slide. And yet, even though they both lived in the same city, this letter was the only proof that these two men knew each other at all. After 1935, there were no private dinners which involved them, no public gatherings, no known phone calls, and no other correspondence. All of this changed in 1961, when suddenly, next slide. A bit distorted, but that's fine. For some unknown reason, the two men strongly encouraged their firstborn children to drop their current relationships and start dating each other. These two children were Patty Purvis and Ken Sargent, seen here in this 1961 photo. Next slide. In 1963, after further encouragement by the two families, Patty and Ken were married. On a strange side note, their wedding rehearsal dinner was held on November 22nd, 1963. Gold star to anyone that knows the relevance of that date. What? Kennedy, JFK, was assassinated on that day. Now, some might take that as a sign or a hint. Not these two. Oh, no, no, no. They pressed forward. And so, next slide. In 1968 and 1969, Patty and Ken had what appeared to be two alien children. So adorable. Over the next few years, their eyes became less black, and they were introduced into the general population. The hope is that they would fit in and be able to live among you. Next slide. The boy then grew up quietly on an island near Seattle. Here he is with local wildlife. Notice the large head compared to his body, a sign that he was probably destined to become a supervillain. He applied to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and this was the actual photo submitted in hopes of gaining favor with House Slytherin. His application was denied because of psychological concerns. A setback, to be sure. Undeterred, he attempted to make alliances with other groups outside of normal channels. Next slide. During that time, he mastered in-game theory, subliminal hot sex techniques, and world domination concepts. The groups he was involved with did not allow photography. This shot, taken in 1996, is actually with my aunt and uncle who were visiting from out of town. Next slide. Most families tend to, oh wait, sorry, I missed one. 1 second. Shoot. Where's this one? Next one? Oh, next slide. And then eventually he became the freshman recruiter for what is now known as Flat Earth 2.0, or Flat Earth, the movement, Flat Earth, the community, Flat Earth, the greatest thing ever. Next slide. Now, most families tend to cherish and share interesting stories like these, and one would think that this topic would have come out sooner or later. What? The what? Oh, okay. So, share interesting stories like these, and one would think that this topic, you're killing me, man, that it would come out sooner or later, but it didn't, even after the two children were married or when their two grandchildren were born, even after the numerous alcohol-fueled holiday gatherings, it never came up in conversation, ever. I can see the wheels turning in your heads. Oh, that's why you're laughing, okay. Some of you think you have the simple answer to this secret. Next slide. Yeah, there we go. Mark's grandfathers had to be gay. Right? This is an image, of course, from Brokeback Mountain, the 2005 movie starring Keith. This is actually in the speech. It wasn't just something he had on his laptop over there. That's what I should have done. It's like, dude, what do you have on that thing? Starring Heath Ledger and Jake Gyllenhaal, which told the story of two gay men in 1963 and how they tried and failed to keep it from their families. Were my grandfathers gay? Sure, it's possible, I'll give you that. Many gay couples try to keep their secrets every day. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. Even in the celebrity world. You know what, let's look at a few quick examples. Next slide. There we go. Cary Grant and Randolph Scott. Oh yeah. They lived together for years. This is, by the way, the same Randolph Scott that was mentioned in the classic movie Blazing Saddles. Gold star for anyone who knows the line. Anyone? Oh, come on, it's Blazing Saddles. How do you not know this? All right, the line is, you do it for Randolph Scott. Randolph Scott, chiseled Western actor, played most of his stuff in the 50s. Anyway, moving on, in Hollywood to this day, tries to keep this secret as best they can. Next slide. Don't boo when you see this. Ready? Next slide. Rock Hudson and James Dean. Rock Hudson and James Dean. This is an outtake shot from the movie Giant. If Rock Hudson hadn't died of AIDS in 1985, this might still be a well-kept secret. Apologies, of course, to the James Dean fan out there. He will always be a 50s icon to me, and I loved his work, even though, come on, he became famous after only making 3 movies and dying from a car crash in the age of 24. Next slide. You'll see where the setup is on this. Next slide. No, good Lord, back up one. We're missing one. Uh-oh. That's all right. You don't have to fill it in. I'll just read it. Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy. Katharine Hepburn, widely considered the greatest actress of all time, actually wanted to marry Cary Grant for appearance's sake, but had to settle for Spencer, who had also needed to marry for appearance's sake. And that was the setup for this, and it might be kind of ruined, but I'm going to do it anyway. Is David Weiss in the audience, or is he in the back room? Is he in? Well, you know what? We're just going to do it without him, so you guys can give him hell later. And of course, David Weiss and Zulu One. Next slide. Next slide.
Next slide.
There we go. I cannot confirm, to be honest, I can't confirm the authenticity of this photo. All that I can tell you is the music was loud and there were a lot of flowery drinks. I don't know which one is David. It was a costume party. And if David's in there, he's probably, looking at me with some panic in his eyes because I'm trying to out him. It's okay, man. All God's children. I'm not judging. All right, so if my grandfather's, wait, am I missing one? Oh yeah, next slide. You don't want to look at those guys all day long. Okay, if my grandfathers were indeed gay, does that help fill in the plot? Not really. Some factors to consider. First, neither of them were exactly lookers, and both men married women more attractive than them. Second, gay men are not known for long-term relationships, and if George and Spence were a couple and were insanely impatient enough to wait until their children got married decades later, then why not spend a lot more time together after their firstborn children were engaged in 1962? And given they lived only 15 minutes apart, why wasn't even a casual friendship ever mentioned? In addition, these two men were polar opposites in a number of ways. George Sargent was born into some money with the whole apple orchard thing, but went into sales and lived most of his life in the lower middle class. Spence Purvis was raised dirt poor during the Depression, but became a career accountant for a large firm and died wealthy. George was born and lived for the outdoors. He hunted, fished, and so did his wife. Spence was a desk jockey, collected stamps, and read periodicals about accounting. Really, really boring. However, next slide. There we go. The only thing they had in common was that they were both Masons. And even then, though, they were from different sides of the tracks. George was a demolay in high school, joined the Order of the Templars, and eventually received the ceremonial sword, like that. Next slide. Spence joined the Scottish Rite and became a 32nd degree in 1955. This is his actual, oh, right here, yeah, sorry. Forgot to put that. This is his actual 32nd degree hat that was given to him in 1955, which I will be raffling off in the back room later.
It's mine.
Does it have magic powers? I don't know, probably. I think I turned a cat into a mouse once, but that's about it. Is it possible that these two young Masons found an obscure bloodline and were part of a larger ritual? Could they have gotten their first two born children to marry, and the firstborn child of that union then possibly became a secret prophecy child? Next slide. Nah, I'm not buying it. Sorry. I mean, if I was this child, wouldn't I have shown some special abilities by now? Yeah, sure. I've done some strange and cool things over the years, but I've never deliberately manifested anything. I say let's put that to the test right now. Ready? I, Mark Kendall Sargent, request... No, that's not strong enough. I can do better. Next slide. I command that a multi-faction group of UFOs start hovering over this facility. Next slide.
Dun dun dun.
Come on, guys. Don't make me look bad in front of the Earth people. Don't leave me hanging. Broadcasting straight to you from that was worth a shot. Next slide. All right, so had I pulled this off, some of the smokers from outside the lobby would have run in here yelling and screaming incoherently. Your phones would have started ringing. There'd be some electrical issues. But that's fine. As the old saying goes, don't regret what you've done, regret what you haven't done. To conclude, or in conclusion of this little journey, that means you can ask questions, get ready. I'm sure you guys have, let's take a quick look at a few secrets that hide in plain sight. Lighthearted. If you were going to take anything from what I say today other than Mark is a genuinely strange guy, remember that things are rarely what they first appear to be. Next slide. There we go. U.S. President Thomas Jefferson owned a large plantation of slaves. And some of you are thinking he's on the $2 bill because he was the second president. Up until this year, I thought that as well. He's not. Is it part of the Mandela effect? I'm looking at you, Brian Stavely, wherever you are. The second president was actually John Adams. Jefferson was, is now, the third president. Honest to God, up until this year, I thought that's why he was on the $2 bill. Next slide. Either way, Thomas Jefferson won't be pulled off of Mount Rushmore anytime soon, no matter how many protests there are. Neither will George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, or, if you're wondering, Teddy Roosevelt. And by the way, for the record, cancel culture can kiss my ass. I hate it. Next slide. John Wayne smoked a lot of marijuana. He did. He was huge into it. But Hollywood, still to this day, will always show him as a straight-laced, tougher-than-nails Western lawman. Next slide. Knight Rider was initially developed as a Saturday morning kids show, but the parents of the children of the focus groups liked it so much it became a primetime hit, even though the premise made, of course, no sense at all. Next slide. My grandfathers had a secret that they took with them to the grave and left almost no traces of their conspiracy. Next slide. And Flat Earth was kept a secret for hundreds of years, long before world governments were established and NASA was created only to be rediscovered by intelligent, awake, and wonderful people like you. Long live Flat Earth. The end. I will take questions as you see fit until I get to And I can't see what's over there. So who's running the mic?
I will.
Are you running the mic?
Yeah.
Rick, of course. Rick Hummer, ladies and gentlemen. Running the microphone.
Check. Line up.
Oh boy. Seriously, somebody's got to have questions.
I'm gonna have to stand back further from the speakers, though, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Come over
here.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you don't want to walk over there, by the way.
I can go to you.
You could go too if you raise your hand. You could do it Phil Donahue style. And I know I'm dating myself when I say that.
Come on over here, guys.
But if you're doing it Donahue style, you got to like lean way in.
We're good.
What do you got?
Hi, Mark. I'm a big fan. My name's Carl. I'm from Jersey.
Hey, Carl from Jersey. Did you drive down?
With my friend Anthony, we drove down, stopped in North Carolina, and now we're here. About 11 hours total, but I'm a big fan, so thanks for having me.
No.
And the CBD coffee's phenomenal. I've never been more calm and focused, but I just got a question about the curvature of the Earth.
Yeah.
Since it's an ongoing thing and our cause is going to have to suffer or live by it, I was just wondering, now that like a guy like Neil deGrasse Tyson's star has fallen in popular culture, does it like help us or hurt us, guys like that, agree with us that you'll never be able to measure the curvature of the Earth? And going forward, how important is it that that's still like, you know, a foundational topic in the debate?
So the question is Neil Tyson hurting us or helping us right now with his commentary?
And guys like that, I just use him as an example. But how important is it that big pop culture scientists like him?
Oh, it's extremely important. In fact, one of our biggest problems right now, and I've said this to some of you, and again, I will try to talk to as many people as I can while I'm here. I'm dedicated to this. So after this, by the way, I will be in the back room with my magic hat, and you guys can ask me whatever you want. However, to your question, one of our biggest problems right now is we don't have enough high-profile trolls. And this goes out to, you know, the ongoing, seriously, I'm not kidding. We don't have enough people. I mean, yeah, of course we've got Simon Dan and Professor Dave. Professor Dave being one of my least favorite people of all time. Guy's horrible. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, give it up for Professor Dave. And by the way, shout out to David Weiss. I know I poke fun of him, but he is by far the hardest working man in Flat Earth right now. And seriously. I mean, between the app and all the interviews that he does, that I just go, oh my God, I'm so glad he's doing it instead of me, because he does a lot of hostile interviews. A lot of people, you know, he reaches out, his people reach out, and when he does them, you know, some of them wind up, as you know. Professor Dave was one of them. Anyway, sorry, back to the point. The problem we have right now, and I'm speaking to a lot of the infighting that's been going on for the last 7 years, off and on, and everybody knows the rumors and gossip out there. It's like, oh, who's fighting with who? And that's because we don't have a high-profile target to go after. It's kind of like the Ronald Reagan speech. It's like, would anyone go to war if a big spaceship? Thanks, guys, for leaving me hanging. If a big spaceship showed up, there wouldn't be any war. Everyone would be unified against or for whoever that was. And that's what we're running into. I mean, if Neil deGrasse Tyson wanted to do a campaign against us, or even Joe Rogan for that matter, if Joe Rogan all of a sudden decided to dedicate an entire month against us, we'd mobilize and we'd be all over it. But Professor Dave and Simon Dan, it's like, yeah, so it just doesn't give us enough focus. So hopefully that helps.
How you doing, man? Wow. Sorry. I'm Anthony Quinn, man. How you doing? We did a podcast together. How's it going?
Hey, Anthony.
Yeah, I drove down with Carl, man. We came from New York. He's from New Jersey.
Right on. And I'm not ignoring your
I know
emails.
you're not. I know you're not. I know you're busy.
I am a little busy, but that's okay. He was actually, while I was in the green room, I'm looking, it's like, Anthony, it's like, why aren't you answering my emails?
No, I did not.
You
No, I
did,
did
you
not.
did. You absolutely did. Anyway, what's your question, man?
Would you ever recommend that somebody actually says they're a flat earther? I mean, it's.
What, generally in public?
I'm so into it, but when people hear the flat Earth, they get mad about it. Dude.
Yeah,
And that's what weirds me out about the whole thing. I mean, it's like they won't even listen; they shut down.
It's a comfort zone thing. More than a thing. I mean, let's take one end of the spectrum. Let's take Peter Jarvio. If you haven't heard me talk, and I know, Peter, are you in the audience? There you are. Of course you're in the front row. Of course you are. Peter Jarvio, activist extraordinaire, right? He goes to campuses. He calls up the campuses, hey, where can I set up my stuff? And they say, oh, for what day? And he's like, all days. He spends an entire week, just 8 hours or however long, doing wonderful stuff. I love the fact of doing that. That's one end of the spectrum, but the other end, I know everyone's got their own thing. What I try to recommend to people, and as this really hasn't changed over the last 7 years, is you have to know your audience. So if you have family members that literally have a tear roll down their cheek every time they see Apollo footage, no, definitely don't talk to them, because you can see them reaching for a tiny little American flag and they're gonna wave it. Don't do it. That's the best litmus test, by the way, in my opinion, as far as getting quick results, is find out how they feel about the moon missions. If they're open about the moon missions, you guys have run into it, they're probably going to be way more open about flat Earth and closed world and everything else that goes along with it. But as far as you're saying, like, we're just walking up and telling people, I remind people the holidays, which are coming up really, really fast. It's one of the scariest times for me, because I keep running into people. It's like, so I'm going to go to Thanksgiving dinner. And I'm thinking about, coming out to my family about this, like, really, over ham and like an hour and a half? You're really gonna do that? And yeah, what's wrong? It is the curse of being who you guys are. In that, for whatever reason, when you went from I hate flat Earth to, hey, you know what, flat Earth's pretty cool, you forget the journey. And you all of a sudden think, even though it could have taken you 3-4 weeks, you now think, because it makes perfect sense to you, that you can convince somebody in under 20 minutes. It's like, oh yeah, I can totally drill this into somebody's head, and you gotta realize that that's not how it works. And it's not your job to do it anyway. All you have to do is give them the idea. Again, you're not there to convince them, you're not there to persuade them, you're there to put the idea, just put the seed in their head and let it go. I know you wanna be there when they have that Owen Benjamin moment, when they're on camera and all of a sudden they go, clunk. Like, holy, it is flat. And, in real time, you want to see that, that wry smile they get when they finally figure it out. But just be content with the fact that they will come back to you later and, fess up, hopefully. Does that help? Is he even there anymore?
He's over there.
Oh, okay, good.
But I was nodding.
Oh, okay, thanks, Ray.
That helped.
Thank you. Yes?
I just wanted to make a comment that the most successful times I've had with sharing my beliefs is by telling a person not what I believe, but what I don't believe. So I say, I'm one of those people who just doesn't believe that the Earth is a spinning ball. And I give them some of the numbers about rotating around its own axis. And that has always been a nice icebreaker.
Yeah.
And from then on, if they want to know more, I'm not telling it to them, they're asking me.
There you
so
go.
It creates a whole different conversation.
Yeah, that's good. And the other thing that, and we're doing once the mandates were pulled back, we've been doing extremely well. Who knew that the pandemic in the short term would cripple us a bit, but in the long term would do nothing but help us? Because as you know, people ran out of things to watch on Netflix. I mean, it's like, it's like, really? It's like, what's new out of Korea? I really don't want to watch this stuff anymore. But so what they're doing is they're turning to the internet and going down the rabbit holes because they've been cooped up. And so now the latest wave. Who do we have? Candace Owens. What's her name? Candace Owens. Yeah, she started questioning it. Don't think that's an accident. Where she's basically testing the water. She's putting it out there. Or UFC guy that just challenged Joe Rogan. Bryce Mitchell. Yeah, that's his name, Bryce Mitchell. Yeah, that was amazing. The fact that he would just do this huge TikTok rant and call out Joe Rogan. It's like, and you watch next week, he will or will not be on Joe Rogan's show, but if he is, it's going to be a fireworks show.
The one thing that Candace said was, I haven't dug deep down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So she didn't say she didn't dig.
Yeah.
Well, there's a whole new opening in what I call the coconut voodoo cult.
Yeah.
That's my code name.
Coconut
COVID.
voodoo cult. Nice.
So I'm finding that people who in the past would not even be open to it, suddenly those people who are aware of what's going on are way more interested in this conversation. So this has made it really easier for me.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, again, we've had so much more exposure, and it is easier to bring it up now. It's not like 2015, where people look at you like you have a giant bug on your face. Now, I mean, the topic is actively, people know full well, it's like, oh boy, we're gonna get into this, but at least we're at that point, but no, we're everywhere, which is awesome. So, thank you. Anything else? Cool.
Hey Mark, by the way, I just want to say that's a great way to tiptoe around the programming. Just going around, circumventing, so to say, the flat earth stigma. So as a community organizer, I want to ask, because you mentioned infighting.
Yeah.
We do a Telegram chat for DFW, Dallas Fort Worth.
Sure.
And we get a lot of that because everybody has a different opinion on everything, which is great in a lot of ways. And really great productive conversation.
Right.
As a community organizer and just a member of this community, I would want to ask, do you have any advice to people personally, first off, to get along with their fellow flat earthers? I know. And,
yeah, I do. But go ahead, what was the
And
second
then for people who do want to create community, I use mainly the friend finder function to build what we have.
Yeah.
Is there any other advice that you would give to anybody who is looking to create community around them and not feel isolated?
First thing I would do, and again, shout out to Flat Earth Dave, is get on the app as fast as you can. I mean, that thing, one of my regrets in life is not downloading that thing quicker, as far as building communities. The other part is, as far as the infighting goes, what I try to recommend people is, the biggest problem we have as far as enthusiasm is when you become, into flat earth and closed world, whatever you want to call it, you have this huge amount of enthusiasm, this wave of we can do anything, and so you're carrying a brand new flag, and you want to plant it, but your flag looks slightly different from somebody else's flag. And when that happens, it's like, no, this is my flag and your flag looks different. Your instinct is to brace against somebody else's flag. But don't forget, I mean, it's easier for me because I'm a big believer in empathy, and that's just something I've carried with me my whole life. It's like, put yourself in their shoes. Understand where they are. Again, I don't condemn them, but because I don't have a leg to stand on. And that does not just goes with, any other variation of flat earth. It goes to any other thing, you probably heard me, if I said once, I said it 1,000 times in interviews, which is, beforehand, if you said, that Elvis said Bigfoot's baby or vice versa, I'd laugh you out of the room. But now, because I start my day with flat earth, it's like, all right, you know what, I'll give you a few minutes. What do you got? Sure, why the heck not? Now, I may shoot him down later, like, nah, I'm not, just be polite. That's the biggest thing. It's like agree to disagree. In the end, which is why the community, why we're still doing this here, and why the conferences are still happening. And like in 2019, when we could do no wrong before the pandemic, when we were doing conferences in like 7 countries, it's because at the end of the day, everyone agrees on one thing, which is the globe is ridiculous. That's the biggest thing. And no, seriously, the globe is ridiculous. But it's again like the Scottish Highlands, which is the clans will beat on each other. At the end of the day, they all hate the English. So same sort of thing. So I'm not worried. I mean, the infighting's been there literally since day one. I mean, come on, going all the way back to day when Eric and Matt teamed up against me. That was 7 going on 8 years ago. So whatever. Anyway, next question.
What's up, Mark? Dan, Flat Earth Subgenius here. Quick question.
Yeah.
Besides Star Trek.
Yes.
Besides ufology.
Yeah.
Besides MUFON.
Yeah.
What else? What were your favorite fringe cults when you were a kid, growing up?
You mean like favorite space stuff?
Fringe cults.
Well, you call them cults. I mean, so Star Trek is now a cult. And I get that, right? You're just relabeling it.
Yeah, well, no, it is. Star Trek's a cult, definitely.
No, I got you. Well, I loved all of it, like any kid. Watching the original Star Wars in the theater. But I've learned I can still enjoy some of those movies. For the fantasy side of it, sure.
But what were your favorite? Besides that. Besides Star Trek, besides ufology, what groups did you first join when you were a young student?
Oh, none. Really? Absolutely none. No. Some of you know this very, very well, which is like I was one of the most naive people ever. I grew up on a very rural island north of Seattle and believed in nothing. I mean, that there were no conspiracies, and at the highest level, nobody ever lied about anything. And when you grow up in the 80s, I was a kid growing up in the 80s, it's like everything's happy and shiny, and the music was poppy, and why would anybody lie? So literally, I'm not kidding you, until I saw JFK in the theater, I didn't think that there was such a thing as conspiracies. And then I walked out of JFK going, just my eyes like, whoa, people do lie about something that big? And that wasn't even that big in the grand scheme of things. So no, I didn't join. I never went to a UFO convention. I never went to a Star Trek convention. Living in the Northwest, I didn't hang out with Bigfoot people. No offense, Karen. And I didn't. I just didn't believe in that stuff. So and not, I had to come from. I mean, you guys were, a lot of you people were really open-minded to begin with. You're talking to a guy that not only did he have world maps covering most of his walls in his condo when I was living in Boulder, but I used to collect antique globes. I had globe bookends, and I bought them from schools that had closed down. I was like, this is such a great icon. So it was tough for me. I mean, it was really, really tough for me.
Yeah. What did you join the Flat Earth Society before you figured out the Earth?
Oh, the actual Flat Earth Society, out of Hong Kong?
No, so it was before, obviously.
Oh yeah, well, okay, so what happened, again, there's tons of video documentation on this, and I probably should have brought that up.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. I could have asked you face-to-face, but might as well just do it.
Oh, no, it's fine, it's fine. And again, the reason why the clues were designed the way they were was because I went to the Flat Earth Society. In 2014, I knew nothing about anything. I'm like, okay, well maybe the Flat Earth Society will know something. So I applied. It's the group that Thomas Dolby, is one of their primary members, that thing. And that's when I found out that there's trolls running the velvet ropes, and that there was only like 500 people in it, and they were doing everything they could to chase people away. And I loved, by the way, that after I made the clue, that it circled back, and people were saying, Mark joined the society, and he must be, counter, control opposition. I go, I was the one that told you not to go to the society, but I appreciate it. I mean, I even get my own clues sent to me every once in a while, so.
What about the Church of the Subgenius or the Discordian Society? Have you ever heard of them?
The what?
The Church of the Subgenius and the Discordian Society?
Oh, that's a mouthful. No.
All right. That's just a little seed drop, but that's it.
No, that's fine.
Mark.
All right, yep.
I'll talk to you later, bro.
Yep.
What was the name of that again?
It's the Church of the Subgenius, a bunch of dinosaur-worshipping heliocentric maniacs that have conglomerized all these conspiracies into one fringe cult, and they think they're fringe and ahead of the times, but when you actually talk to them about flat Earth, they they whittle away all their confidence in their little thing that they have going on since 1979, 1980. But the Discordian Society predates them to about 1950-ish. And this goes to like Helena B. Blavatsky and the Theosophical Society that she formed in the late 1800s. Yeah, but this is all like gets into spiritual stuff and psychic wars. But yeah, no, it's good stuff. But thank you. I'm glad to be here.
yeah, no, happy to be here. And again, I'll catch me if you can.
Okay, I will.
Back there.
I will.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
I just had kind of a two-parter. So, like the Go Fast rocket, you know, that was in like 2004.
Was that 2004? Was it that far back?
It was a while
Wait,
back.
what was it? 14.
Oh, maybe I got that.
No, that's fine. I mean, it's still 8 years ago.
Yeah, right. Well, I just always wondered, like, if you have an opinion on why they always have cameras, because that's not NASA, you know. It's,
right.
So why do they always have cameras pointed down and not up? I mean, if you're 70 miles in the air, you would think a view above you would be amazing.
Well, and it's not always. I mean, come on. For the bigger stuff, they never ever point down. That is one of my proofs, which I yell at people. I go, look, put a, you know, if you're going to do the Artemis project, for example, good luck. You know, point the camera down and let that sucker, you know, because it's never happened in the history of space travel. For you new people, no rocket leaving Earth has ever pointed down and the Earth has formed into a globe ever in the history of space travel. It's like, how is that possible? As far as that rocket, I think they just pointed it down. I don't know why they pointed at that angle, to be honest. I think it was probably the easiest thing to do.
The camera kind of stopped working or the rocket stopped working, right? Like it's kind of maybe hit something.
I know. I've watched it a million times. And what I like is it keeps getting sent, you know, every year. Is it possible that whatever was 63 miles, 64 miles, or whatever it was, that, you know, that it did hit something? Sure, I'm all for it.
Is Bob Nodell in here? Is Bob in here?
Bob's in the back.
Bob may have an answer for that question about the rocket stopping.
Bob's back there.
Okay, Karen, do you remember this? We may have had this conversation years ago. Remember when they said the rocket had some type of a pin inside of it with a spring that it would actually...
The yo-yo braking system. It was on Amazing Acts of Science on like Discovery or the Science Channel. And you can still buy it on Amazon. Yeah. And they say that the reason the rocket stopped now was because weights were wound up around it, and then as it went, it rotated. And then the yo-yo braking system.
Yeah. Yo-yo braking. I got your yo-yo right here.
Thank you. That's what they said it was. There you go. Thank you.
One other question. Do you think that the role of the art, like, you know, painters, writers, singers, composers,
yes.
do you see that it has a place in sharing and in basically like influencing the same way that the news and the media influences? Is there such a thing as like flat Earth or non-round Earth artists anyway?
Oh, are you kidding? There's a bunch of, I mean, one thing I love about the Flat Earth community is it's extremely creative. So, you know, the 5 forms of the arts, right? Pictures, everything 2D, sculptures, music, dance, and literature, right? We represent all those sectors. I mean, there's not a lot of dance. You know, not a lot of Flat Earth choreography.
That's coming tonight.
Yeah, thank you. But I mean, the others. I mean, come on. If you've never looked at it, you know, I've had a Flat Earth music playlist where people just start sending me, hey, I made a Flat Earth song, or this song is inspired by Flat Earth, and it goes on and on and on. And the painting. I mean, the slideshows which I do for a lot of my interviews. There's a lot of original art in there by Flat Earth people. No, Flat Earth people are the most creative people ever when it comes to this, and we are straight because mainstream is so structured and so, you know, it's awful. It's absolutely awful. No, we create our own news, and our news is far more effective because it inspires. Mainstream news just talks to you. We inspire people.
And yet, major news is still using artists to get their message across. They're using editing, lighting,
sure.
You know, so.
But they can only go so far.
Yeah.
You know, they can only, they can't color outside the lines, little play on words there. They can't do that. You know, of course the graphics can be really flashy and they can blind you with red and blues and the occasional yellow, but no.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm inspired. I'm putting out
Good.
my book of people's collections of people's writing that have to do with the flat Earth.
Oh
Why
yeah,
not?
no, we've had. I mean, we have created so much content in the last 7+ years that even though mainstream does what it does, and all the YouTube channels, the bad ones, the anti-flat Earth ones get stacked towards the top. We're still out there a lot. I love, we just figured out different ways for people to see it. Like, Flat Earth Dave, says, just don't search for Flat Earth when you want to find my stuff. Search for Flat Earth Dave. I don't even say Flat Earth Clues anymore. I just say Flat Earth Mark, and you'll find it. So.
Another tick.
Question? Other question?
Hey, Mark. I'm
Hi.
from New Mexico New Mexico State, the state of New Mexico. I say that because people think I say I'm from Mexico. So from New Mexico, the state of New Mexico.
There's a New Mexico?
Which was actually called New Mexico before Mexico. It's a whole thing.
Okay.
So super glad to be here. I flew way out here, delayed flights, traffic jams. So I'm really glad to be here. So thanks, guys. I wrote out my question because I wanted to kind of make sure I had it
That's fine.
solid. So I'm going to read it to you.
That's fine. This is what they, by the way, they do for every Ben Shapiro thing when he's up there. They read off their phones. So go ahead.
Okay.
No, they do, because they're really long questions. Like, what do you think about point A through F? Is it really long?
Not really.
Okay, go.
Maybe, I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe it is long. So I said, hey, my name is Dana Roth. I'm a social psychology student, a PhD student from NMSU. I appreciate your thoughts on focusing on planting seeds as opposed to a firehouse effect. And coming from a social psychological perspective, there's merit in the foot in the door phenomenon where people are more likely to accept larger amounts of information when they've already accepted smaller amounts of information. This is critical in spreading valuable information. Additionally, a more long-term strategy in social movements is the mere exposure effect. That is, people are more likely to have affinity towards the things that are prevalent as well as widespread and often viewed. Grassroots movements are often critical in this, in like movements like ours. As someone who values truth, the attempt of indoctrination at the higher education level can be very oppressive at times. Luckily, my advisor pushes back, so I have a support system where I'm at. But my question is this: as the grassroots movement advances towards or forward for the Flat Earth movement, as well as other truth-related issues, do you think there is value in documentation at the higher education level to track the beliefs and understandings of the Flat Earth community to bring more value and exposure to the Flat Earth truth movement? If so, is that something that could be used strategically to implement to help with exposure as well as bring credibility to the movement?
Wow. Wow. Thank you, by the way, for framing that as extensively as you did. Okay, so as far as secondary education, I imagine you're talking mostly from a university standpoint?
Correct.
Right. I have done, some of you guys have already seen it, I've had so many universities reach out to me. Now, are they developing curriculum around it? Probably not. What I will say is, and I don't boo when I mention it, but when Behind the Curve came out, it gave the educators, a lot of educators, license to talk about it before they didn't. You could not run a class. I mean, I've had university classes run an entire week on Flat Earth, where they spent 2 days watching the documentary and then 3 days, raising questions and come up with this stuff. So, in a number of even high schools, it is required viewing, which is amazing. So we're already kind of there because of which way the media is going. Now, do I expect that, as far as developing a full-blown curriculum, will there be literally a Flat Earth 101 in your university anytime soon? Probably not. But it would be cool if it did, who knows, it only takes one professor to throw it out there. If there's enough content for him to build out an entire semester or quarter or whatever it is based on that, sure, I can see it. And would it help? Yeah, you bet it would. Look at, and I'll mention Peter really quick. There were, Peter spent the week, Monday through Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, at Clemson University, just doing his stuff, and we had, what? Awesome. You were invited to do a class at Clemson University?
Hang on, Peter, come over here.
Yeah, Peter, come over here, Rico.
Come over here, just can't hear.
So, Peter Jarvio, ladies and gentlemen.
Peter!
So while he's thinking about this, I spoke to at least 4 people from Clemson University that drove out. yesterday to talk about flat Earth, just based on what you did. I don't know if there was more. There might have been. But go ahead, tell them what you're saying. So Clemson offered to do what for you?
Well, I was there on a Tuesday, I think, and a couple students came out. Their teacher was inviting me to teach their class on Thursday.
Right on.
So I went to the class, 17 students plus the instructor, and I was given half an hour to do fake moon landing, flat Earth, and take questions.
Really?
Yeah.
Good for you, man.
I was at Appalachian State a few weeks ago, and I taught one class on a Tuesday. The professor invited me back to teach his other class. So I taught 2 classes at Appalachian State.
Awesome.
But,
awesome. Good
the
for you.
students are really open right now.
Professor
of what? What department? At Clemson it was English. I believe the classes at Appalachian State were both English classes.
Yeah, that's great.
But the students are more open every semester.
Yeah.
They really, most college students at least question the moon landing, suspicious about it. And then I use that as the back door. I go in the back door and then work my way to the flat Earth.
Cool.
But they're real receptive.
Wonderful. That's great.
We need to call you Professor Pete now.
Yeah, thank you. My only complaint about you, Peter, is that you have done hundreds of hours of this and you just refuse to film it. And I know that you're not that type, but
it's the same thing. I'm very repetitive.
Right.
So the whole presentation, the short version is 1 or 2 minutes. The long version is maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I don't have more content each time.
Well, I know. But
it's still pretty repetitive.
It still would be cool though. Again,
I'm all over TikTok and Snapchat.
Yeah.
That's how they would come over on campus and say, "Oh yeah, we saw you on Snapchat, so we came over to check it out."
Yeah, I hear that's big with the kids, the TikToks and the Snapchats.
Yeah, they told me at Purdue I had 500,000 views on TikTok.
Fantastic.
But anyway.
Wonderful. Thank you, Peter. Appreciate it. Anybody else like kids?
I'm Mark.
Yeah.
My name is Christian.
Hey, Christian.
From Georgia.
Hey.
One of my biggest things I've always been interested in and coming to realize when I started to realize the truth is community. How important community is to me and to everybody else.
Yeah.
And I have this question for you.
Yes.
Given that the Shriners is a Freemasonic organization,
Yes.
does hosting here raise questions and divide the community? And what standards should we hold steadfast to prevent division and ultimately strengthen our community?
Right.
Thank you.
First part first, this was more of a nod to, you got to remember that back in 2020 when the pandemic hit, and Karen and I, we talked about this at some length, which was, there was nowhere to do a venue anywhere. 2020, it was supposed to be Vegas. It was supposed to be this huge blowout in Vegas and it was going to be fantastic. And Karen called around and every place that wanted to do a venue wanted to do masks. And it was laughed because it's like, wait, you're telling me that you're going to make all of us wear masks? It's never going to happen. Even if you could get, you guys will wear masks walking in the door, you're taking them off as soon as you get in. And this place was the only venue. And my attitude was, hey, my enemy is my friend. It was like, if you guys are willing to take us in here, great, fantastic. I don't think you're going to get a lot of new members out of us, that they're going to be joining. But fantastic, great, good for you.
And they've treated us great.
Yeah, and they treated us great. And then as far as, thank you guys. Seriously, this is all wonderful. Again, back in 2020 when we did this, not only if you remember, nobody here was wearing masks, but the staff weren't wearing masks either. They didn't give a rat's ass. It was fantastic. So as far as community goes, I can only refer back to 2019 when we could do no wrong. Before the mandates, it was all happening. We were having meetups everywhere, and the meetups were big. David and Zulu, did that meetup in New York, and I think they were in low triple digits. And then we were doing conferences in multiple countries, and the community's out there. It's absolutely great, but it just got stunted. The whole world got stunted with the mandates, and now that the mandates are off, here we are again. We never went away, so I have no doubt moving forward that we're just going to get bigger and bigger.
How you doing? CJ from North Carolina.
Yeah.
Just a question regarding the treaties. Has any work ever been done as far as the elimination of the Antarctic treaties. Has anybody approached that? I'm new to this, so.
No, it's all right. And it's a fair question. There are no dumb questions, but you got to understand that the Antarctic Treaty is not only is it the only unbroken treaty, I think, in the history of man, it is the most ridiculously bulletproof thing, and they just keep tacking on to it. I mean, when you make a treaty back in, it's shorter for us now, but if you make a treaty in 1959 saying, oh yeah, we're not even going to think about rolling back this treaty until 2041, that's what, 80 years? That's crazy. I mean, yeah, 2022, well, it's not that far off, but you bet full well they're going to kick that can down the road. Or in 2015 or 2016, when we really started taking off, when they banned drones. You can't fly drones out in Antarctica. They just added that, just stuck that, slap that sticker. Oh, by the way, you can't do drones anymore. It's like, come on, you're not even playing fair. So no, they're not. No one's going to retool it. Antarctica is still a logistical nightmare.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm from New York, or I came from New York. And thank you for being here.
Yep.
I just have a more interpersonal question for when we're relating to people who we want to get more interested in this topic, because I view it as one of the most important things that you could possibly look into in the true sector. When I found out and started looking into it, it certainly changed everything for me. And the most common question that I get from people I try to talk to about this is, it always ends with, well, I don't see how it's important to me.
Right.
And I don't see how it affects me.
Doesn't affect me.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, in your words, if you could maybe address the people that maybe we talk to together.
Yeah, those people. I mean, generally speaking, when you're trying to convince somebody of flat Earth, I recommend a lot of duct tape and a heavy wooden chair. But and a bright light. No. When it comes to someone like that, you're not there to convince, you're not there to persuade, you're there to just put the seed in their head. If they're saying, oh, it doesn't matter, which of course it matters, it's only because they're not visualizing it. They don't want to visualize it. So don't take it any further than that. If they say that to you, the seed's already in their head. There was something that was told to me by a journalist, I don't remember what country it was, where he said that, I think it's called the seventh man syndrome or eighth man syndrome, you guys are gonna have to look that up, where what happens is when you put the seed into somebody's head randomly, there's something out there, and it doesn't matter what topic it is, if 6 other people, again, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, it's either 7th or 8th, but if other random people start mentioning it, and you guys know it's any topic, eventually subconsciously they'll be like, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna look into it. And it could be anything from, oh, hey, that restaurant has great curly fries, and eventually he's gonna eat them, to, oh, hey, that movie that people keep dropping on me, I'm gonna go see it. So every time you do that, every time you just randomly bring up flat Earth to somebody, it sticks in their head, because in your case, it'd be like, okay, that person talked about flat Earth, I may not want to talk to her for a while, but then he hears it from another person, another person, and eventually they just cave in. I've heard this from tons of people, where it's like, all right, let's go into YouTube or Rumble or whatever it is and start clicking away. So don't worry, I mean, if they make a response like that, that's perfectly fine. Let them, you don't have to press it. Because if they say they don't care, it is, you've heard me say this, which is, it's like telling somebody about flat Earth, seriously, for a lot of people, it's like telling them after the age of 30 that they're adopted. It's really creepy, because and you say, well, these nights, whatever, and even if I was, I wouldn't care. Yeah, that's a lie, because the second you start believing it, it's like, oh man, who are those people? Was I in a basket? It just goes on from there. What else?
Real quick, Mark, one of the things, like, we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Less is more sometimes with people.
Yes.
Know the person you're talking to.
Yep.
If they can't handle, the news not getting on TV at the right time, if there's a delay, they're not going to want to listen to a bunch of information.
Yep.
And stick to the most simplest of points to make.
Yep.
Like, water's a natural level.
Right.
Water's a natural level, we see further than we should.
Yep.
That's something that they can actually see all the time.
Sure.
And just out of curiosity, how many people are new to the Flat Earth
raise your hand
in the last year?
First conference.
Or how long have you guys been in? Like, how many of you have only been into Flat Earth for, say, 2 years? How many of you been in? Just keep your hand up. Keep your hand up. How many of you have been in it for less than a year? Wow. How many of you have been in it for more than 5? Now wait, the people that have their hand up for less than a year, keep your hand up. Now, the people that, now put your hands down, but keep an eye out. Keep an eye out, watch. How many of you have been in it for over 5 years?
Yeah.
I want you to keep a note, keep a mental note on the people that you're seeing and go talk to those people, have conversation. Because all of us that have been in this for a while, a lot of us went in this with flamethrowers, trying to just give all the information we could.
Yeah.
And we are the guilty party. We pushed our families and our friends away because we wouldn't shut up. I'm serious, and you're going to help those that are new. Remember that less is more. Be gentle, be humble. You know, it's been around a while now, so you can actually go and give that information, you know, in a pleasant manner, but turn it around on them. Like, can't you see this over here? Yeah, well, you shouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
And then now it's on them. Like Mark said, let more people come to them. Don't keep kicking down the same door.
Right.
They're going to ignore you.
Hi, Mark. My name's David Wright.
Hey, David.
I've been in it since July of 2017.
Good for you.
I wanted to tell you thank you before I asked a couple of questions because I came into Flat Earth a fresh Christian, and everything that Flat Earth led me to has solidified my belief. And I would have completely lost faith in humanity, honestly, had it not been for Flat Earth. My best friends and the only people I associate with that don't have the same blood as me are Flat Earth people.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, Jenny Sparks, sitting back there in the back, I met her through a Flat Earth chat.
Really?
I'm in Minnesota now because of that. We met in a chat, and she's pregnant. So my first and only child can really be saved indirectly because of you, Mark. And I wanted to say thank you before I asked. Thank you, seriously. I owe you the world.
Oh, no. I'm happy for you, though. That's fantastic.
And so what are you going to name the kid?
Yeah. Oh, man. Her name is Mark.
No, don't do that.
Whatever Jenny wants is what we'll name it.
Happy wife, happy life.
Thank you, brother. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think about the 70th week of Daniel? And do you think that the Antichrist is living now? And if so, do you have a theory about who he is? Oh. And what are your thoughts?
Really? You're going to throw that one on me? I don't know. I can answer it really quick. I don't have an opinion on that. I'm old enough that I have heard too many. Come on, you guys know. I mean, over the years, it's like every American president since Reagan, you know, it's been like, oh no, he's the Antichrist. He's the Antichrist. I got nothing on that. You know, let's put it this way: after the animated movie I Pet Goat, or animated short, where you know more from George Bush to Obama. And, you know, now we're, you know, Trump into Biden, and it's like, yeah, sorry, I just don't say anything right now. I don't. The Great Reset is on hold. I mean, right now it's just, you know, vaccine side effects and inflation, and the rest of it just seems to be spinning. And
what are your thoughts about the 5 red heifers going to Jerusalem? And do you think that any one of those bulls will be the one sacrificed? And your thoughts on the third temple being built?
Oh, okay. All right, enough. I only heard the bulls, right? The Red Bulls?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's not a energy drink reference. I only heard about that recently, so I don't really have anything on that, or the other thing, to be honest. You gotta remember, I'm broad strokes and freshman recruiter, and that's more of a side path that others specialize in, not me. But thank you, though.
Before I go, I just want to say thank you again.
Very happy, and
Rob Skiba, rest in peace.
Rob Skiba, rest in peace. Rob Skiba.
You and Rob, the first interview I saw with you was Rob. I loved him to death.
Yeah.
I wish he was here.
His work lives on, man. That is never going away. So, thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah. Do we have time for any more?
And he took my question.
What question was that? He had like 7.
Joe from New York here. I know you mentioned the sun is a incandescent light and the
moon is a cold LED.
Yeah.
So if we did not have the sun, things would get cold.
Sure.
So why is cold the default setting in your
For the moon?
For the Earth. Why is cold?
Oh, why is cold the default setting? Wow, that's an interesting question. I never even thought of it like that. I don't know. I mean, cold is the default setting for everything, isn't it? Even this room. You know, you walk into it until you turn the heat on, it's cold. I don't know. It's just a transfer of energy. You have to start somewhere. So I think it would start on the low end of the spectrum. Again, it's just something we live with on a day-to-day basis. You start with the low end of the spectrum and move up to the higher frequencies. But I don't know.
Cold is the absence of heat.
There you go. Cold is an absence of heat. So
I think this is it. And
is it? Okay.
Yeah, he saw the YMCA picture.
Who did?
Hey, Mark. Excuse me.
Oh, God.
My name is David Weiss. I live in Connecticut.
David Weiss, ladies and gentlemen.
Mark, I have one question for you, and then I have an experiment I want to do to see if we can blow up the internet.
Okay.
With all the rumors about you all over time, we've heard them all, they've been dispelled. I've heard a new one recently that you might be my father.
Really? You want me to break up the YMCA slide?
Never mind. We'll go straight to the experiment.
Okay.
Anybody that has the app and has updated it, you can go to groups. All right, everyone's feedback. All right, well, that's my experiment. Thank you very much, everybody. And now feel free, you can make group calls. When you do, like if you're doing a meetup, you send out a radius message, create a group for that meetup and then send the group name out in that message and tell everyone that's interested to join that group, and then you guys can communicate that way. So there you go. Thanks, Mark.
Very welcome, David.
Okay.
It's lovely to see you.
We'll discuss later my questions.
Okay. You actually have a question later? Oh, okay. I thought you were just doing an Alex Stein thing. All right, any other questions? Or are we wrapping this up?
I think Earth ships. Have you heard of Earth ships, Mark?
Oh, what?
Earth ships. I did an interview with Karen about Earth ships, about self-sustainable off-grid hobbit homes where you collect rainwater, solar power, wind, and you're built into the ground so it naturally cools and heats. Geothermal.
Plug it if you're going to go this far. Put the website.
Yeah,
say the website.
Well, it's Earthship Biotecture, but you can, if we all build a crew together, like 20, 25 people, you can build an Earthship in 1 month's time, and it could be a flat Earth center, a flat Earth artistry, music, comedy, library, and then it can further, you know. It's a lot. It's getting more and more popular and viral, but you should definitely look into the Earthships.
All right, I will.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah. Anything else, Rick?
I think that's it.
Okay, so before I go, I'm not leaving right this second. Give me a second. I want to wrap this up with some lyrics from a song that has inspired and haunted me since my childhood. It speaks of a future that was denied to us, a future we should have had, with cities in the sky, flying cars, and robot servants. It goes exactly like, next slide. Oh, you would sleep and switch? There we go. Meet George Jetson, his boy Elroy, daughter Judy, Jane, his wife. And that's it. The entire Jetson song only has 11 words. And not only, I mean, and it reads like a car crash, doesn't it? Killed in the crash, George Jetson, his boy Elroy, daughter Judy. Compare that, of course, to the Flintstones, where it had 11, this is for Karen, if she's out there, which had 11 words in the very first verse. 11 words in the entire song. Jetsons, first verse, 11, 11, 11. You're welcome, Karen. Thank you, guys. Long live Flat Earth. And, of course, hot sex.
All right, guys.